Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Godbreaker in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Better get the cool slow, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. It looks like the landscape of crowdfunded comics is changing. Now, in a previous live stream, I talked about how YouTuber Comics Matter, your boy, Zach, formerly known as Diversity and Comics, was acting erratically in many of his recent videos. And I also talked about how legendary comic book creator Ethan Van Sciver has also been going on a similar pattern of erratic behavior online. Now, both of these comic creators started their YouTube channels and established their web presence back around 2018, and during that time, they started their businesses based on the issues people were having as related to comics created by what was called them social justice warriors, who hoped to create a more diverse world of comics under the campaigns of the all-new, all-different Marvel. And as they started making their own independent comics on platforms like Indiegogo, and other creators started making comics in a similar fashion on Kickstarter, what they hoped to do was create a counter marketplace for independent comics, and they thought they could go out here and make a alternative to what they considered to be poor quality comics that were presented as related to the social justice comic creators, who they say were creating at the time woke comics on imprints such as Vertigo, with titles like Border Town, and mainstream titles like the all-new, all-different Marvel's Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, the totally awesome Hulk, which was Amadeus Cho, Captain America, who was Sam Wilson, and Riri Williams, Ironheart, who were meant to replace characters such as Tony Stark, Iron Man, Steve Rogers, Captain America, Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and Peter Parker, Spider-Man. And they hoped that by providing this alternative, that people who were still buying comics would pick their comics. And while both Richard C. Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver had lots of success in the beginning as related to their campaigns for their books like Jawbreakers, Lost Souls, and Cyberfrog, Blood Honey, I mean, Ethan Van Sciver basically made millions of dollars as related to Cyberfrog, and Richard C. Meyer made hundreds of thousands of dollars for his Jawbreakers comics. Both of these men thought that they were going to revolutionize the comic book industry with their independent crowdfunded comics. However, basically 5 years later, these men are frustrated because they've basically lost all of their momentum. And as they've lost their momentum, they've seen a black male competitor in Eric July get a lot of success with his Rippaverse line of comics, making millions more than they did. And as they've seen Eric July basically making more money, they've basically turned on Eric July, who they basically were upset at, because one, I believe they were upset, one, because he's a black man who surpassed them as related to making money, and two, they're also upset because they have entered into this publishing business and they really don't understand the process as related to the publishing business or how it works. Now, ironically, this is what really undid the all-new, all-different Marvel and many of the social justice comics over at Marvel, DC, Image, and Dynamite, was many of these individuals do not have that publishing experience to really understand the business, and because they do not really understand the business, both basically on both sides, the so-called social justice warriors in editorial and creative at Marvel and DC, and many of the independent creators like Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver, they really don't understand the publishing business, and because they don't understand the publishing business, both sides really aren't making the progress that they expected to. And basically, on the side of the Marvel and DC, they're seeing their sales plummet to all-time lows because they have in what these many of these so-called social justice types or woke people basically are extremely inexperienced as related to the publishing business. And when it comes to many of the independent creators like Richard Meyer, Ethan Van Sciver, and even Eric July, they basically do not understand the publishing business, and because they don't understand the publishing business, they're starting to become frustrated, and they're starting to become frustrated because they no longer have these customers that are out here looking to support their products based on the politics that they present. No, people are basically now looking for those products to, one, be created on a consistent basis, to be able to be created and present and published on time and shipped on time, and three, looking for that level of quality that both men basically pledged would be better than what was presented as related to the all-new, all-different Marvel. And sadly, these men are not really able to deliver on those standards, not able to deliver on those standards as John De La Rose has presented in his videos, not able to be able to meet those standards. And that's why these guys are basically lashing out, because they basically don't understand the whole paradigm of the publishing business. Now, as someone who's been in the publishing business for 15 years, I've been doing this officially since 2009, and I was doing research on it before I started the SJS Direct imprint in 2009. I mean, I have been working on trying to get into the business since the year 1997. And I have a long background, again, of experience, and I can tell you what's happening to, Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver is basically what's happening to these men as related to their publishing businesses is these men have basically plateaued, and as they've plateaued, they're starting to see that there's more to this business than just going out here and making comics that aren't woke. Because again, this whole statement of, oh, our comics aren't like those at Marvel and DC and are not woke, that's not enough of an argument to sell customers. Yes, it will get people who were emotional about the culture war excited about your books emotionally. But in this business, if you hope to keep an audience, what you have to do is make sure you have quality material, and that material has to be more than what they call woke. It has to be well written, it has to have compelling characters, and it has to answer three critical questions I have to answer before I put fingers to the keyboard. Who is the main character? What do they want? Which is the conflict as related to the story, and why should we care? These are the questions a writer like myself has to answer before I put fingers to the keyboard. And sadly, what's happening in the case of Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver and many other indie creators is they are not really understanding that you have to answer those questions before you put a comic to a place like crowdfunding. You have to have a quality story in order to get people's attention. And once you get their attention on what's related to the first project, you're going to be in for an even greater challenge, because yes, your first comic is good, but your second comic and your third and your fourth comic have to be better. And if those comics really are not really exciting, you're going to be in for a point where creatively you're going to plateau. And if you plateau, basically what can happen to your company is you can start shedding customers, because the customers are not seeing anything that shows them that you're going to take these characters and enable them to grow. You're going to show me that basically you're a one-note writer or a one-note artist, and that's the problem that's been happening with Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver and even Eric July. These guys are basically turning into one-note writers who basically can only write one story against the social justice types. And the social justice types, again, writing against them, that's only a small audience, and compared to the larger audience. And when you're out here, you really have, when you're a publisher, you have to come out of your box. You have to come out of your comfort zone. If you hope to expand your audience, you have to come out of your box and really start getting creative, because every publisher has this point where they basically, again, hit that plateau point. They hit that plateau point creatively. Yeah, you're doing these stories and they're all the same. And again, eventually the audience gets tired of seeing the same stories. And the point that the story is not woke, is not good enough. No, what people want is more. And you're going to have to find a way to give them more. And that's what's happening now to a lot of indie creators. A lot of indie creators are finding out that they don't have that more. And that's something you have to think about when you go out here and publish material. You have to think about what you're going to do next. Okay, yeah, you've offered me some so-called non-woke comics that you say are better than other people, but we're 5 to 6 years into the game. We're 5 years or 6 years since 2018, at the height of the culture war. And now that the culture war is basically taking a turn where you have companies firing these activists and social justice types, the arguments of guys like Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver don't really have that bite like they used to, and even worse, they don't have anything to offer. And since they don't have anything to offer in the face of stiff competition like Eric July, who basically isn't really offering much, I mean, what these guys are is getting frustrated because they don't understand the publishing business, and they don't understand that when you have a plateau, you have to adapt and change in the marketplace. You have to adapt and change in the marketplace because, again, what you produced in 2018 ain't gonna hit in 2024. What you produced back 6 years ago, yeah, that got you in the door. Yes, what you produced in 2018 may have gotten people excited on social media, but social media has completely changed in the last 6 years, and what you used to do in 2018 ain't gonna cut it in 2024. The audience has completely changed, and what you have to do when the audience changes is adapt to the audience. That's what you have to do, and that's what I had to do with SJS Direct. I mean, the books that I published in 2009 are not the same books I publish in 2024. The books that I published back in 2002 with Virtual Bookworm are not the books that I publish in 2024. And when it comes to the marketplace, you have to shift your gears. And sadly, when it comes to a lot of these crowdfunded creators, they don't know how to shift gears. No, they basically stay in the same gear, which is, oh, the SJWs at Marvel and DC. But the SJWs are not the ones who should be the ones motivating you as related to your business. No, the SJWs and the garbage books they produce should not be your focus, and countering them. No, the focus of your business needs to be focused on your customer base, and you need to focus on your customer base of core customers. That's what you have to focus on. And sadly, Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver, they're not focused on their customers. Ethan Van Sciver basically is caught up in his social media hype and the millions he's made, but not looking to satisfy customers who are frustrated about the lack of progress on his books. And when it comes to Richard Meyer, he's basically making rants about Marvel and DC and acting and then turning on YouTubers who basically see that there's something wrong. And what's wrong, again, is that he's not focused on his business. I mean, your business shouldn't have been on SJWs. It shouldn't have been on looking to go after comic YouTubers, which he's doing right now. The focus needs to be on creating quality products and making sure that products get out on time at a certain date. I mean, as somebody who's been in digital publishing, again, for 15 years, My main focus has always been making sure that the books are the best quality as far as I can make them. I mean, I'm a one-man operation, but I try to make them the best they can be, and to making sure I can find a way to satisfy customers as I look to reach out to new customer bases. These are the things that I focus on as related to terms of things, because I understand that this is a business and it's a rough one. The publishing business is not for greenhorns, because yeah, you might have a first 5 years like Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver have had. You might have a hot first 5 years, but if you want to stay in this business for 10 to 15 to 20 to 25 years, yeah, this business you're going to have to adapt, because this business is rough. And yeah, you may get the door opened with certain kinds of books, but you've got to know how to shift the gears so that you can continue making money, publishing comics, because in the publishing business, again, 90% of all books fail, and with 90% of all books failing, you have to be understanding that there's a chance that you're going to take a loss, which some people speculate Richard Meyer may be taking on his upcoming crowdfunding project, because it's not about to get funded. And again, you have to understand that you need to be on point, because these losses cost real money, and they cost real money because the customers get frustrated because they're not getting things like their books on time, not getting quality stories. I mean, this is what I see doing damage to many of these big-time comic YouTubers who, again, talk a good game, but don't understand this business is not a sprint, because a lot of these guys, they sprinted to success, but they don't understand that this publishing business is a marathon, and it's a marathon that you have to pace yourself for. When it comes to publishing, you've got to pace yourself for a marathon, because you might even be producing quality books, but they may not be catching on. That's all part of the business, because I've had many books that I thought were really great, and some of them did get great reviews, but they just did not hit well with readership. Like I always talk about the Isis Wrath of the Cyber Goddess book that I made in 2014. That book was considered to be critically acclaimed when people read it, but they didn't want to pick it up and buy it. And I saved up money when I sold a lot of my toys in my toy collection on eBay to get Bill Walko to do that cover. And it was really a disappointment, but that's just part of the business. There's a lot of heartbreak in this business, and it looks like these guys are not able to cope with this business, and how rough this business is, because, yeah, what I see happening to them is, again, they sprinted to success, got that millions in crowdfunding and hundreds of thousands in crowdfunding, but they can't keep that momentum up. They can't keep the momentum up, and it's really frustrating them, because they didn't know how to pace themselves and look and understand how to adapt. They didn't understand that this marketplace changes, and in the world of publishing, yes, everything is going to change on you in 5 years and 10 years and 15 years, because the audience changes. I mean, what you did again at the first year, that you can't do that now. I mean, the books you made in 2018 for that crowd of people who said they don't like woke comics, well, we're out of the era of woke, according to reports. So what do you have to offer? Critical question I gotta ask Ethan Van Sciver and Richard Meyer and many other comic crowdfunded creators. What do you have to offer and bring to the table now that these companies like Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery are firing their activists? What do you bring to the table to customers? What do you bring to the table to those customers? I mean, what are you offering those customers? I mean, again, you can't keep bringing me books that, again, to say that they're just not woke. That's not an argument anymore, because the term woke in and of itself doesn't mean anything anymore. No, the term woke doesn't mean anything, but the term inexperienced means something. And that's the argument that you can make, saying these people are inexperienced, these people lack the life experience to be able to write and craft stories. These are the arguments that need to be made. Moreover, you have to present it on your page, like I tried to do with my comic John Haynes at Death Store, making sure that what's on the page can get your attention. This is what the focus needs to be as related to crowdfunded comics, because if people don't focus on this, what's going to happen is you're going to fall into this plateau. And the whole thing is, once you get plateaued, that's when you can start your creative decline if you do not watch yourself. If you don't watch yourself, you can wind up on a creative decline because you don't know how to adapt to the changing marketplace. And that's what I see a lot of these guys who are making big money in 2018. They're basically at that point where they've plateaued, and I would dare to say some of them have even peaked. And as they've peaked, they basically don't have anything to offer to show that they can adapt in this business. And that's why they're lashing out on social media. That's why you see Richard Meyer lashing out on social media. That's why you see Ethan Van Sciver lashing out on social media, and many others. They have nothing else to offer because all they know is culture war, but they don't understand the publishing business. And since they don't understand the publishing business, they don't see that their behavior is going to lead to them going out of business if they don't know how to learn how to adapt in this business and make changes that are constructive to appealing to a larger base of customers outside of those anti-social justice types and anti-SJWs. You've got to expand to a larger base of customers. I mean, that's what I had to do at SJS Direct at about 2011. I saw, okay, I've got to this point where I got people's attention, and I see that I'm not selling books at places like the Harlem Book Fair or trying to sell books outside. So I regrouped and started focusing on ebooks and focusing on my blog, and I started to build some traction. Then I started to go to YouTube in 2013 and start looking to reach that audience. And again, this is something that takes time to progress and takes time to put together. And right now I'm trying to readjust again because I see that the audience basically again has plateaued as related to things. I'm starting to shift gears once more as related to focusing on some different kind of books. I mean, this is again something you have to keep doing and keep going at. I mean, this is what God told me to keep going before I lost my job in 2008. But the whole thing is, when I look at Ethan Van Sciver and Richard Meyer, they really have hit this point, and again, as related to creatively plateauing, and also have hit this problem as related to their business. They don't know how to make it expand, and they're looking to get into these YouTube back and forths. But these back and forths basically are not getting the views that they used to. They're not pulling in the ad revenue. They're not pulling in the money. No, people are tired of hearing about social justice warriors. They're tired of hearing about inexperienced woke creators. What people want to see is what you're going to have to offer as part of your phase 2 now that you've had your phase 1 and introduced yourself to us. Now that you've introduced yourself to us and introduced us to your products, this is where you have to show me what you've got next. And sadly, what's happening here with Ethan Van Sciver and Richard Meyer and many other indie comic creators is that they can't show you what they've got next. And as they can't show you what they've got next, they're basically winding up falling behind guys like Eric July, who's also going to hit that plateau, because I don't think that Rippaverse is very strong. Again, he, like Meyer and Sciver, basically ran on emotions as related to woke and didn't look to craft a universe of characters that people cared about as related to connecting with these characters and their stories. And as these two guys are jealous of Eric July and want to lash out at him, they can't see he's on the same road business-wise. And that can be shown by the state of the comic book industry, which is in a bad place. I mean, these indie comics were supposed to revolutionize the business, and I actually thought that they would revolutionize the business, but they're not getting any of the traction that they should be getting. No, they're basically petering out like many of the independent comics of the 80s that were produced by companies like First Comics, companies like Eternity Comics, and and Eclipse Comics and Fantagraphics Books and many other small independent companies during the black and white craze of the 80s and the color craze of the independent 80s. I mean, a lot of those books were really great books, but they never really got that traction after a certain point because the creators could not make that phase 2 after peaking with after phase 1, and could not make that second and third story arc to really draw people, and even Milestone struggled at that point. And it's a challenge to do this again, to come and just keep pushing things. I mean, I know this from experience because I had to do it with the ISIS series. Yeah, my first story arc was okay. My second arc with the Cyber Goddess, it started out not really catching on, but by Bride of Dracula, it started to pick up. And I'm trying to continue getting that momentum because I know customers can take books for granted, trying to keep it up with Dark Incubus, which kicks off the third story arc. And with the Steam series, I started out strong with that first arc, but now I'm trying to get this second arc on point. I mean, started out kind of weak with Goddess of and Cancel Vacation, but by Horror of the Hyena Woman, I'm starting to get that traction back. And with the John Haynes series, I started out with a good first story arc, building off Temptation of John Haynes and Man Who Rules the World. So I know that you have to, again, keep your focus on as related to keeping people interested and keeping people excited. It's hard to do that building a world and a universe. I know how much work goes into it. I know how much work goes into it and keeping the audience interested. And when I look at these guys, again, they basically are green as related to the publishing business, and green because they don't understand how the dynamics of storytelling works. Yeah, you can come out with a great story in the beginning, but people want to see what you got next. So they really, what's happening to them, again, it's part of the growing pains of publishing. And again, they're lashing out, not understanding this is alienating customers. This is alienating customers and making them where they don't want to buy your books because, one, the books are not very good as related to what you promised. Two, the books are not coming out on time. And three, you're attacking the customer. So what's happening here is we see a big problem with these two guys. And again, just shows me how much the market changes. This is all part of this business of publishing. Again, the audience is going to shift and you have to be ready for it. You have to be ready and say, okay, the audience is going in this different direction, so I got to go with that direction. Just like driving a stick shift, you reach a point where the gears basically, as related to one gear, basically hit their peak, and you got to shift it to move the thing forward. So what's happening to these guys is that they don't know how to shift gears. They don't know how to move things forward. And instead of looking to find a way to learn how to drive the stick that you have to learn how to do in publishing, they're basically, again, plateauing at the first gear and not looking to go into second. And that's what you see happening here with Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver. Now, if you want to check out my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, that comic is available on Lulu.com in paperback, and it's also available now on Amazon Kindle in digital format. And you can pick up that comic by clicking the links in the description box. And you can also pick up my first digital comic, Esteem No Good Deed, which is available on Kindle for 99 cents. And it's also available in the back of the Esteem series book, Esteem Blast from the Past. Now, if you want to check out the books of the SJS Direct Universe, you can find the books of the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my vampire novel Eternal Night, my sorority novel The Thetas, and my business novel Recipe for Success. You can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos talking about publishing and the comic book industry, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available on Lulu, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at Lulu.com today. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Isis Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Isis Dark Incubus at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.